Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, bringing you our 2011 Mid-American Conference preview. There's a lot of tradition here at the Mid-American Conference, and they're going to look to add UMass next season. So let's just jump right into the recruiting trail and see how well these teams recruited this past offseason. Best recruiting class in the Mid-American Conference. I'm going with the Temple Owls. These guys built a lot of depth defensively. That's why they're going to stay aggressive, and they added some firepower at the flanks. But the headliner is tailback Myron Ross. This guy is a load in the backfield, 6'1", 210 pounds. Very explosive guy and has that speed to take it the distance and runs with a lot of power and purpose. Some other key recruits in the MAC. Let's start with the Akron Zips, getting A.J. Price, a 6'4", 190-pound wide receiver with long arms and great run after the catch ability. Ball State was able to get a big running back. He's going to play fullback for the Cardinals, 6'1", 255-pound. Keenan Noel is a guy that's an excellent blocker. Bowling Green was able to get a solid offensive lineman, and Scott Hodges, 6'7", 297, a load on that offensive line. Buffalo helped out their defensive front. Kendall Patterson, a guy that's 6'3", 285, can play either the 5 technique or defensive tackle. Quarterback Alex Nisnak is a guy that has a live arm, very powerful arm, and his deep ball accuracy is very impressive. Now you look at Eastern Michigan, the big cornerback, and Sean Cotton. He may play a little safety, but this guy also doubled as a wide receiver in high school. Trayon Durham should help out that backfield for Kent. This guy just looks like a MAC runner, 6'2", 240, should be a tremendous player for the Golden Flashes. Out of New Orleans, the Miami Redhawks were able to sign Tim Johnson from Edna Carr High School. He should be a stud for the Redhawks. Northern Illinois was able to get an outstanding quarterback, another dual threat guy in Matt McIntosh. This guy has slippery moves and should be a solid player for years to come. The guy I really like in Darius Vick. This guy can throw under duress and throw it accurately, so he should be an outstanding quarterback for the Bobcats. Talk about a very stout defensive lineman. Andre Sturdivant may see time as a true freshman for the Rockets. That's the type of player he is. Western Michigan was able to get one of the explosive wide receivers in Timmy Keith. This guy has a lot of speed and a lot of quickness and brings good bursts to the position. Some Mid-American Conference superlatives. Let's start with the best quarterbacks in the MAC. I'm going with Northern Illinois. Chandler Harness is a guy that can do it through the air. He can do it on the ground. Very talented player, and he's a tremendous leader, and that's the reason why that offense, the Huskies, is a very explosive bunch of guys. Best running backs in the conference, I'm going with Temple. You look at Bernard Pierce has been a steady player for a lot of years for the Owls, and their talented scat back and Matt Brown, this guy can make you miss the phone booth, is the reason why the Owls have a lot of optimism this season. Best receiving core in the MAC, I'm going with Western Michigan's duo of Jordan White, who's a prolific wide receiver, and also the veteran Robert Arnheim. These guys are very solid. Both can catch the football with their hands, and both have tremendous run after the catch skills. So there's a lot to smile about this season in Kalamazoo. Best offensive line, I'm going with Northern Illinois. You look at the 3 guys that have made all conference: Trevor Olson, Scott Weddich, and also Joe Powell. Like, there's a reason why that offense in Northern Illinois is very explosive. Best defensive line in the MAC, you have to go with Miami of Ohio. You look at what can Brown do for you. Both Austin Brown and Jordan Brown, very solid defensive tackles, and there's a reason why teams had problems running against the Redhawks last season. Best linebackers in the MAC, you have to give it to Toledo. Linebacker Dan Moles, the guy that had over 143 tackles last season, all MAC performer, and also Terrell Anderson's another guy that's very stout and has knockout power. Best defensive backs, I'm going with the Rockets of Toledo. They returned 4 starters in the secondary, led by Tyquan Page, Desmond Morrow, and at safety, Jermaine Robinson. All guys are very solid in the back half of that defense. Best special teams in the MAC, I'm going with Western Michigan's duo. Kicker John Potter is a very good kicker, and punter Ben Armour averaged over 41 yards a punt. They have a very solid unit. Offensive MVP, I'm going with quarterback Alex Carter of Western Michigan. What I like most about him is not the fact that he can run around like this, but he has a live arm, 30 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He should have that Broncos offense on fire this season. Defensive MVP, I'm going with Ohio's linebacker Noah Keller. This guy has over 330 career tackles, missed most of last season due to injury, but he will have a bounce back campaign this season for the Bobcats. Freshman of the year in the MAC, I'm going with Akron's wide receiver A.J. Price. This guy was a Penn State commit back in 08, so he's now with the Zips. So he brings a lot of explosiveness to the position, 6'4", 200 pounds, has the ability to jump up and pluck the football out of the air at his highest point. Very solid player should be for the Zips. Best pro prospect, I'm going with Chandler Harnish out of Northern Illinois. This guy is a dual threat type of player, 800 yards on the ground, 2,500 yards in the air, and he doesn't make mistakes, only 5 interceptions, and has the leadership skills that NFL teams covet at the quarterback position. Team on the rise in the MAC, I'm going with Kent State. Truth be told, Kent State is not that far off. These guys have a lot of depth and they're headed in the right direction. Very well coached squad. So you look at this season, if they can make the necessary strides, this will be a team in 2012 that may be a front runner for a conference title. Toughest schedule in the Mid-American Conference, I'm going with Miami of Ohio. You look at the Redhawks schedule, a lot of tough road games, in particular in conference. They have to travel to Toledo, Temple, and Ohio, and in between that they get Western Michigan sandwiched. So this is a tough slate for a team that may struggle on offense. Prediction time in the Mid-American Conference. Let's start in the East. I have the Akron Zips finishing 7th. Reasons for optimism. You have to love the depth of the defense. They got a lot of guys involved last season, and you would want to think Patrick Leasley will improve at the quarterback position. Causes for concern, the running game. Who's going to play running back? And also offensively, can they protect up front? That was a big problem. But what we will learn is that Akron in 2012 will probably make a move out of the cellar of the Mid-American Conference. Next up is the Buffalo Bulls. Reasons for optimism. Defensively, last year, they were solid. So you look at the guys they have returning, a lot of depth guys, so they should be solid, especially the linebacker core, one of the best units on that team. Causes for concern is the lack of explosiveness offensively. Can they find a running game? Can they find somebody to play consistent at quarterback? Those are the questions. But what we'll learn is that Buffalo is a year away from being a solid team. I have the Falcons finishing 5th. Reasons for optimism. I love the defensive improvement. I think the linebacking core and the secondary are very solid units for the Falcons. Causes for concern. Can they replace the running back Willie Jeter? And can Matt Shill's improvement help out this offense because they have some talent at the receiver position? But what we will learn is that Bowling Green will be a solid team this year. Kent State I have finishing 4th. Reasons for optimism. I love the offensive line and defensive line. Defensively, they're very solid up front. 4th in the nation in rushing last season. But causes for concern is that linebacking core. There's a lot of holes to fill in that position. But what we learn is that Kent State is a team on the rise. Their wide receivers are very explosive and the offensive line is very solid. So that's going to keep them in a lot of ball games. Next up is the Redhawks. Reasons for optimism. You have to love the defense. Arguably the best D-line in the MAC, and they do have the best linebacking core in the Mid-American Conference. Causes for concern, the offense has to replace Merriweather in the backfield and Robinson on the flanks, and quarterback Zach Dysart has to cut down those interceptions. But what we will learn is that the Redhawks, despite a tough schedule, will be in every ball game because of that very strong defense. Next up, I have the Temple Owls. Reasons for optimism. You have to love the backfield of Bernard Pierce and Matt Brown. And the offensive line is huge. And you have to like defensively, they're still going to be aggressive. Causes for concern, the quarterback position, a lot of inconsistencies at that spot. And defensively, they lost a lot of guys up front. But what we will learn is that overall, Temple still has enough talent and depth to challenge for a MAC title. The Ohio Bobcats finishing 1st. Reasons for optimism. You have to love their receiving core, one of the best wide receiving cores in the MAC. You have to also love that linebacker core, very solid group. And most importantly, the schedule sets up nice for Ohio. Reasons for concern, they're replacing the quarterback. They have some questions in the running game, and that secondary has lost a lot of starters, so they have some questions to be answered back there. But what we will learn is the Bobcats are well coached and have enough firepower to win the MAC. Next up is the Eastern Michigan Eagles. Reasons for optimism. Quarterback Alex Gillette is a guy that I really like. Dual threat passer, made significant strides last season, and I love the fact that they're well coached by Ron English. Causes for concern is the lack of explosiveness overall as a team. Plus, there's a lot of new faces on that defense, so expect that defense to struggle just a little bit. But what we will learn is that 2012, you'll start to see a small breakthrough for the Eastern Michigan Eagles. Ball State I have finishing 5th. Reasons for optimism. You have to love the defense of the Cardinals. These guys will get after the quarterback, and you have to love linebacker Travis Freeman, one of the best linebackers in the country. Causes for concern, I have questions about the youth at quarterback and the wide receiver spot. They need to get better in the passing game, and that's something that has to improve this season. But what we will learn is that Ball State is probably a year away from being competitive, but that defense will keep them in every ball game. Next up is the Chippewas. Reasons for optimism. I love the depth on the offensive and defensive line. I love the talented tailback combo of Tipton and also Cotton. And wide receiver Cody Wilson is a very good player. Causes for concern, that guy right there, Ryan Radcliffe, has to protect the football. 17 interceptions is unacceptable. and the linebacking core has to replace Nick Bellore and company, but what we will learn is that the Chippewas will have a lot of success next season. Have the Broncos finishing third. Reasons for optimism: the quarterback-wide receiver combo of Alex Carter and Jordan White should be prolific, and I also love that defensive line should be a very solid group. Causes for concern: you look at the running game, they need some punch back there in the backfield, and you also have to question the linebacking core, and the offensive line lost a lot of starters, so there's some holes on this team. But what we will learn is that this could be a dark horse candidate to push for a MAC title. Next up is the Huskies. Reasons for optimism: quarterback Chandler Harden is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's well protected with the best offensive line in the MAC. You look at guys like Trevor Olsen, Scott Weddich, Joe Powlack, all guys the first team all conference. Causes for concern is that defense. 9 starters are gone off a very stout defense. How can they replace those guys? But what we will learn is that Northern Illinois has enough offensive firepower to challenge for a MAC crown. Calling for Toledo to finish first in the West. Reasons for optimism: that explosive offense with wide receiver Eric Page and tailback Adonis Thomas, plus they returned 17 starters off an already stacked team. Causes for concern: I look at Karen at the center position. Can he replace Kalowski, and how well can that defense get to the quarterback? But what we will learn is that the Toledo Rockets will be able to possibly pull off an upset against the Ohio State Buckeyes this season. For more college football preview videos, visit footballgameplan.com/collegefootball or visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/footballgameplan. And listen to the Football Game Plan radio show, which airs Saturdays 11 a.m. Eastern Time at blogtalkradio.com/footballgameplan.